Black goo is often depicted in movies, TV shows, music videos, commercials, and video games. It even makes the news from time to time.
Black goo, or something resembling it, is found in the Indian River Lagoon. What is it? And is more on the way. News Channel 5's Megan McRoberts, part of the largest news team on the Treasure Coast, and she joins us live from Jensen Beach. Megan.
Michael, tonight environmental experts are trying to figure out exactly what washed up ashore here on Hutchinson Island over the weekend. A viewer sent us a photo he took on Sunday of what appeared to be a black gooey substance.
Cheryl McKenzie walked outside her Farmington Hills condo only to find her white Lincoln MKS covered in this blackish, bluish, green gook, covered in this blackish, bluish, green gook, blackish, bluish, green gook, blackish, bluish, green gook that rained down on her neighborhood.
Then I started looking, I said, wow. And I walked up and down the street, and in the street it was covered. I went to each unit, it was covered.
From the driveways and walkways to the windows and roof, Plum Grove Lane is splattered with this stuff. It happened 3 times recently, and no one knows what it is. Yuri Voldman tried to wash it off his SUV.
And I have no idea where it's coming from. And sometimes in the morning, sometimes during the day. I thought maybe, birds flying.
I think that it might be something from one of the airplanes. They might have dumped something out because the airplanes fly kind of low in this area. But we're really concerned. We're concerned that it might be toxic.
So what are they trying to tell us? What is this black mysterious substance?
World's most mysterious substance, black goo. The biggest deposit in the earth is found in Paraguay. It's must be more than coincidence that the Bush family has bought acreage of land there to build their villa. And even more freaky is the fact that Angela Merkel, the Chancellor of Germany, has bought land to build her villa right next to the Bush's villas in the Paraguay deposit of the black goo area. Very strange indeed. Also, this black goo seems to be living. Black goo is found on Earth, but it also comes onto Earth from outer space. When it's kept in a box, it seems to be asleep. It's silent. It's like a little hamster that's sleeping. You can see it's alive because of the way it's somehow moving. When you have two boxes in the same room, they seem to feel the presence of each other, and they strive to reach each other. If they cannot reach each other, they start shaking in the box, trying to get one to the other, to come close to each other. They're liquid crystals, and they seem to have intelligence. This black goo has been found in the rainwater of Germany. This is black goo crystal extracted from World War II SS black stones. These are the black stones that are very similar to black stones that have been used in pagan rituals, in even the black stone that is found in the Kaaba in Mecca. In the past, these black stones were used by witches, pagans. Human sacrifice was performed on them, infant sacrifice on these black stones. And one such stone, as we said before, is located in the Kaaba in Mecca, where Muslims have pledged to make at least one trip in their lifetime to the Kaaba. The ancient Egyptian priests used to eat monatomic gold, which would bring them into the M state matter and therefore be able to keep their youth. Humans are able to find themselves in M state matter up to 18 years old, and that's when they start aging. We also have reference to monatomic gold in the Old Testament. I believe it's in Genesis. Many a time asked Orthodox priests why the inclusion of monatomic gold, and such passages of monatomic gold were put in the Holy Bible. Moses was very careful to place that in there because he was the person who wrote Genesis. So reading Genesis 2, verse 12, it says, "The gold of that land is exceptionally pure. Aromatic resin and onyx stone are also found there." Onyx is usually black. So another version says, "The gold of that land is good. The bdellium and the onyx stone are there." And again, one verse before that from Genesis 2:11, "The name of the first is Pishon. It flows around the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold. The gold of that land is good. The bdellium and the onyx stone are there. The name of the second river is Gihon. It flows around the whole land of Cush." So they give importance in the Old Testament. In Genesis, the first book of the Old Testament, Moses tells us of the monatomic gold and the black stone, the onyx. Strange that he gives this information. It's as if he's guiding people there. It's a verbal map as to where they can find this, quote, "gold of that land is good, and bdellium and onyx stone are there." So obviously they're in need of all this, and he's telling them where to go for it. Between the rivers Pishon and Gihon in the land of Cush. Also, black goo from the Deepwater Horizon incident that polluted the beaches. We have to remember that no civilians were allowed to work at those beaches for the cleanup because of the danger involved with collecting this black goo. As a matter of fact, certain people that were working on that area for the cleanup witnessed that they got sick. Some of them had infections on their hands, on their legs. Some of them had to be amputated. Several people said that they could not get rid of the from this black goo, which they believed was tar or oil from Deepwater Horizon, and they believed that it had infected their whole body, their whole circulatory system. Tar or oil, 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 tar or oil.
The British Navy was at war with everybody. They were trying to conquer the world, and to build sea vessels they needed tar, pitch, and turpentine.
Well, there was a vast forest, 90 million acres of virgin longleaf pine. The sap flow was just amazing. All that resin flows, of course, throughout the tree. It sticks to things and it seals water. The whole purpose of the tar was to waterproof ships.
You can read about this in a book, but nobody's actually seen this for close to 100 years. This is something that people did for 200 years in this country, every single day. And the resin would come out to the outsides of this tree. After a couple years, this wood on the outside of this tree would be totally saturated with resin like this right here. November cold months, each man had to cut 100 of these holes in the base of a tree just to catch the resin that's coming down in the spring. And each week you dipped out the resin and you started again, catch you a new streak. But this is what actually led to the demise of all the longleaf pine in this area. But this is what actually led to the demise of all the longleaf pine in this area.
I'm making tar. It'll come out the end of the pipe there as tar. It should start to drip pretty soon. This here is good fat lotto right here. dark in color, resin still in it. That will give you a great abundance of tar. Okay, it's starting to drip out now. It fascinated me by what our forefathers had done. It's learning. It's learning what they did and how they produced these products. They were actually very, very smart, very intelligent. Yeah, you get a good flow going out of there now. That is tar.
And tar was used by England to coat the sails, the ropes, the riggings, to keep them from rotting. They painted it on with a paintbrush. If you take this and boil it, then you boil it down and boil the moisture out of it and make pitch. And pitch is what England used and drove it in the sides of the ship between the cracks.
You got a good flow going now.
And the tar would be all around the catch hole coming out of these mounds.
The tar that comes from the mounds, they would boil this, boil the moisture off, and it would become pitch, you know, real sticky. They would add horse manure. It would bond it together. It would hold it, strengthen it. Yeah, horse manure. Pitch starts this tar.
Yeah, the pitch was a thicker substance which they would heat up to get pliable, so they could actually paint it on the between the cracks of the boards and waterproof the ships that way.
I'm sealing off the top of the steel now. Basically what you're doing when you pour the resin into the steel, you heat it in order to get the resin to boil off in order to make the turpentine. Turpentine is used for numerous things, medicine. They use it in paint thinner. England needed us a lot in order for our products that we had here.
What we have is a miniature steel, but the first thing we're going to do is load the resin from the pine trees into the steel. Now when this resin starts cooking, it's going to turn into a liquid. Then what you have left over in here is called rosin. This is a byproduct of turpentine. The rosin was not considered any good for anything. They dumped it in rivers and streams, and later on they came along and mined it back out because they'd started using it in soap. In fact, growing up, when we killed hogs, we threw some of this in the hog vat and it helped the hair come off of the hog. Rosin up your bow.
They ran out of trees. They ran out of trees. They ran out of trees.
Because they seemingly were endless in supply, they never did bother to go back and replant any of them. Never did bother to go back and replant any of them. They never did bother to go back and replant any of them. So they eventually just died out.
The consequence was the work dried up and people left.
Hi everybody, today is May 29th, 2015. It's Friday evening and I'm home after a trip to Larch Mountain today. And this is Mount Hood. I'm standing at the very top of the caldera, and of course you could see that it's completely chemtrailed. There's no blue anywhere. But after basically being frustrated by looking at the sky, I went down into the forest, and I was absolutely shocked to discover that the forest is in really bad shape. One of the things that really shocked the heck out of me is that the trees in the forest are exuding this black goo. I've never seen this in any tree before. Every one of these trees that are exuding this black stuff has a crack down the center of the tree. And this is Mount Hood, by the way, guys. So let's take a peek right here. This is the first tree that we came upon, and as you can see, at first we thought that this tree had been struck by lightning because it was black. But the thing is, there was a lot of moisture on the tree trunk, so it could not possibly have been from a lightning strike. But when you look at it, it's all wet. It's totally wet. And we didn't think about it when we were looking at it at the time, but it's all of these trees in the woods, like this tree. This one is also cracked. I mean, you can see it starts at the ground here and it moves up. Here's another one. This one is also split down the center, and this also has black goo coming out of the bark. I was just shocked. And where we were located was right by a campground, but as we went away from the campground, you could see that the forest had completely died. I mean, you heard no birds, there were no animals, you saw not a squirrel anywhere. And usually you would see squirrels, hear chickadees, hear crows, you'd hear something out in the woods, and there was absolutely nothing out there making noise. It was silent. I mean, this Mount Hood National Forest is silent. But as I said before, there are cracks in these trees. This one hasn't started to exude any black goo yet. But this one right here, you can see it. I mean, look at that. And this stuff is just coming out of the tree. I've never seen that before. This tree as well, they're cracking. This right up the center of the tree. We noticed this in all of the trees that we were passing. It's just unbelievable. This is the black goo that we took off of the tree. As you can see, it's wet, it's really nasty, and the tree is just literally dying. It's unhealthy, and I was just really shocked to see it. And there's that black crud that he took off of the tree. Right here, this is the beginning of the tree cracking. You can see the crack and the black stuff just right up the center. Look at that. It's right up the center of this tree. And there is black stuff. I've never seen it before, and I really hope that anybody else who has been in the woods lately has noticed this and might have an explanation as to why the trees are cracking right up the center and are exuding this black stuff. This is not normal. I suspect that it has a lot to do with, I'm wondering, because I do know what is supposed to happen according to biblical prophecy, that America will burn. According to biblical prophecy, that America will burn. According to biblical prophecy, that America will burn. And I'm wondering if they are not preparing our forests to burn anybody who is inside the forests. It's a thought. It's something that crossed my mind several times before. So I'm just throwing it out there, not saying that this is what they're preparing to do, but I find it scary and disheartening to see the woods just dying. This is deeper into the woods, far away from the camp. As you can see, there is absolutely little to no vegetation, and this is why we are not hearing any animals in the woods. Everything in here has died. And I'm astounded. I'm just kind of at a loss as to what that black stuff is, but it is wherever we walked. I don't know. According to biblical prophecy that America will burn, according to biblical prophecy that America will burn, according to biblical prophecy that America will burn.
Researchers say that a devastating tree disease in California might be impossible to stop. According to findings published May 2nd in the journal Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, a water mold pathogen in California forests has led to a phenomenon known as sudden oak death. Since 1995, millions of acres of coastal California forests have been affected, though not all species are vulnerable. Researchers from Cambridge University, North Carolina University, and the University of California now believe that the spread of the disease could be impossible to stop. A possible solution would require the removal of over 200 square kilometers of infected trees each year, costing $100 million annually. But experts believe this would make little impact on the spread of the disease.
In many coast live oaks, the first visible symptom of infection is bleeding through the bark surface. The liquid that oozes from the bark is generally thick and dark reddish-brown to black. In some trees, bleeding is extensive. The appearance can change over time as the ooze dries up and is washed away by rain, often leaving dark stains on the bark. Let's look at an example. We began observing this tree in 2000. In 2006, we noticed bleeding on the trunk of this tree for the first time. Let's look closely at the area in the red circle. When we chip away the outer bark near the bleeding, you can see the canker formed by the pathogen in the phloem of the tree. The canker is the area killed by the pathogen and is visible on the outside but in the area between the arrows. Let's follow what happens to this tree over time, starting when we first noticed the canker. The canker continued to expand, and as is typical among trees with sudden oak death, the older part of the canker was attacked by the sap-rotting fungus Annulohypoxylon thorsianum and several different species of ambrosia beetles. 3 years after infection, the entire trunk is girdled by cankers and the canopy is dead. By 5 years after initial infection, this dead tree is still standing. The tree has already been dead for a year at the time this picture was taken. The tree in the background is also dead.
Every year in the Bay Area, hundreds of oak trees are destroyed by a disease that is so quick and deadly, it is known simply as sudden oak death. This plague has killed so many trees that vegetation experts at Point Reyes National Seashore are concerned about what sudden oak death may mean for California's future.
When considering the possible effects of sudden oak death here at Point Reyes National Seashore, you need to really picture what's going on in the environment. Here you've got oaks that are being lost in the understory. These oaks produce acorns that are really important to the dusky-footed wood rat as a food source. And unfortunately, these dusky-footed wood rats are a primary prey source for the spotted owl. Not only that, these trees are starting to die and fall down and build up fuel in the understory of both redwood and Douglas fir forests. These trees are starting to die and fall down and build up fuel in the understory of both redwood and Douglas fir forests. These trees are starting to die and fall down and build up fuel in the understory of both redwood and Douglas fir forests. And we may be seeing some of the effects of sudden oak death recently in the Big Sur fires, where there may have been an abnormal increase in fuel loading as a result of this disease. An abnormal increase in fuel loading as a result of this disease. An abnormal increase in fuel loading as a result of this disease. An abnormal increase in fuel loading as a result of this disease. Also attacking oaks in the form of a bark canker. And what's happening is that the canker is actually spreading throughout the cambial layer, which is the living tissue on the outside of the tree. And unfortunately, if that disease continues around the entire trunk of the tree, it will girdle it and eventually kill the entire tree. Sudden oak death disease was first detected in the 1990s in Marin County, and unfortunately that continued to spread pretty dramatically and rapidly throughout the area. And we're assuming that redwoods are actually the foliar host for that disease. And we're assuming that redwoods are actually the foliar host for that disease. Redwoods are actually the foliar host for that disease.
The Bohemian Club was established in 1872 in San Francisco as an exclusive club for political and intellectual figures who wanted to spend some time each year relaxing and interacting in a non-business environment. In other words, a playground for the elite. They began camping at the present site of what's known today as Bohemian Grove, 2,437 acres of private redwood forest. 2,437 acres of private redwood forest.
And we're assuming that redwoods are actually the foliar host for that disease.
Okay, we're back. It's 8 minutes after the hour, and we're going to get deep inside the Illuminati, the family, the order. We have a guest that was involved with this group, born into it for over 30 years, and her name is Svali. Svali, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
So you reach the age of 12, and then you're told by your parents you're going to an induction ceremony in the Vatican. Can you tell us how that happened and what occurred at that ceremony when you went there?
Okay, this isn't easy to talk about, as you know. When I was 12, I was flown over to Germany, and I was at, I'll call him the German father's house over there, and there was some preparation for a few days beforehand, and I was told that there would be a very important ceremony, and it was considered a sealing ceremony at that point. And basically, I was told a little bit about what I was expected to do during the ceremony. You know, when we got there, we went to the Vatican. There's underneath the Vatican, there's a large room that I described to you when we talked before. It has 13 catacomb chambers leading into it with and what they do is they, as you go down these steps into the room, you can see that it's almost circular, and so they're all around it, and they bring out the mummies from the catacombs, and they set them beside each one, and they say that the spirits of the fathers watching over the ceremony. And during the ceremony, there was a large table in the center of the room. It was on top of a huge golden pentagram, and they had a ceremony there. You know, they.
Okay, now how many other children were with you being inducted into the family or the order, as they call it?
There were 2 other children at that point, and but there were several adults too.
Okay.
See, the church also brings in adults to swear their allegiance too. Just so you know, I was told, and I don't know if this is true, but if you want to rise to a certain position within the Catholic Church hierarchy, you do have to go through that ceremony as well.
Okay, so you're down in this room with your parents weren't present.
No. The German father and the French father were. Yeah.
Okay, and at that point, tell our listeners what you witnessed.
Well, there was a table. It looked like dark glass in the center of the room. I mean, it was made of stone, but it was very shiny and dark and black. It was made of stone, but it was very shiny and dark and black. It was made of stone, but it was very shiny and dark and black. And it may have been something like obsidian or onyx. I'm not sure. You know, I'd have to. That's the only time I've seen stone like that. And it may have been something like obsidian or onyx. I'm not sure. You know, I'd have to. That's the only time I've seen stone like that.
These are the black stones that are very similar to black stones that have been used in pagan rituals, in even the black stone that is found in the Kaaba in Mecca. In the past, these black stones were used by witches, pagans. Human sacrifice was performed on them. Human sacrifice was performed on them. Infant sacrifice on these black stones. Infant sacrifice on these black stones. And one such stone, as we said before, is located in the Kaaba. In verse 12, it says, "The gold of that land is exceptionally pure. Aromatic resin and onyx stone are also found there." Onyx is usually black. And onyx stone are also found there. Onyx is usually black. And onyx stone are also found there. Onyx is usually black.
And it had, like, around the corners, it had, like, these gold, I guess, channels that you know, to collect fluids. And little boy was placed in the center of the table and drugged. I think he was drugged because he was very quiet. He didn't move or say anything during the ceremony.
This was a little 3 or 4-year-old boy.
Yes.
Correct?
Yeah.
And then they continued to, go ahead, they continued to do a child sacrifice.
Yes,
right in front of you.
They did. Yes. Yeah, I told you about that afterwards, the man in scarlet, he had a huge golden ring on his hand, and he came over to the center of the room, and he had each of the people that were swearing that day, I had to go forward and kneel before him and kiss his ring and swear my allegiance to the new order, to the new world order, until my death.